Welcome to Midnight Mysteries, where the veil of night lifts and the shadows whisper truths to chilling for the light of day. You're not here by chance, my friends. You've come because the dark calls to you, because you crave stories that cling to your bones, stories that make you question the silence in your own home. Tonight, we're not telling just any tale. We're stepping into a nightmare so real, so deep, it's haunted America for over 200 years. This is the story of the Bell Witch Poltergeist of Adams, Tennessee, a spirit so fierce, so alive, it didn't just haunt a family, it spoke to them, mocked them, tore their world apart, and, some whisper, claimed a life in blood. Close your eyes for a moment, if you dare, and picture this. It's 1817, a time when the world moved slower, when towns were carved from wilderness, and faith was the only shield against the unknown. In a quiet corner of Tennessee, the Bell family built their home, a sturdy house of oak and hope, filled with the laughter of children, the warmth of a mother's love, the strength of a father's pride. John Bell, his wife Lucy, their 9 children. They thought they'd found their place in the world. They thought they were safe, but something else thought differently. Something old, something angry, something that didn't belong. It started small, as the darkest things often do. A knock in the night, a shadow where no shadow should be, a chill that lingered too long. The Bells ignored it at first, as we all do, telling themselves it was the wind, the creak of a new house, the tricks of a tired mind. But it wasn't. It grew, it watched, it waited. And then it spoke, a voice not human, not animal, but something else slipping through the walls, calling their names, knowing their secrets, promising pain. This wasn't a ghost content to linger in corners. This was a force, a presence, a witch who wanted them broken. For the next hour, we're not just telling you a story. We're taking you there to Adams, Tennessee, to the Bell family's home, to the nights when the air turned cold and the walls came alive. You'll hear every knock, every whisper, every scream that shattered their lives. You'll walk with John Bell as he faced a voice that hated him, with Lucy as she fought for her children, with little Betsy as she stared into eyes no one else could see. This is the Bell Witch. And she's not a fairy tale. She's a warning, a mystery, a terror that's never left. Why does this matter, you ask? Why spend an hour with a story from 2 centuries ago? Because the Bell Witch isn't just history. She's alive in every tale told about her, in every shiver you feel when you're alone. She's in the cave that bears her name, where voices still echo in the dark. She's in the questions that keep you awake. What was she? Why did she come? And what if she's still here? The Bell Witch didn't just haunt the Bells. She haunts us all, anyone who listens, anyone who wonders, anyone who feels that prickle on their neck when the house goes quiet. So let's set the stage. Imagine you're there in 1817, sitting by a fire that doesn't warm you. The night is heavy, the stars hidden, the air thick with something you can't name. You hear it a tap, soft at first, then louder, on the door, the window, the walls. You check, but no one's there. You lock the door, but the sound follows you, closer now, inside the room, inside your head. And then, worst of all, you hear her, a voice, high and sharp, laughing, saying your name, knowing things you've never told a soul. What do? Run, hide, pray. The Bells tried all 3, and it didn't matter. She was already inside. This journey isn't for the faint of heart. Over the next 60 minutes, we'll uncover every piece of this haunting, every moment that broke the Bells, every secret the witch revealed, every shadow that lingered after she was gone. We'll walk through their home, their fears, their fight, and we'll ask the question no one's answered. What was the Bell Witch really? A ghost, a curse, a demon born of pain, or something worse, something that's still watching, still waiting, still calling? Before we begin, I need you to do something. Settle in. Find a place where the light holds strong. Check your doors, your windows, the corners of your room. Dim the lights if you're brave, but keep one burning, just in case, because tonight, we're not alone. The Bell Witch has a way of finding those who listen, those who linger too long in her story. And if you hear something tonight, a knock, A tap, a whisper in the dark, don't answer. Don't move, don't even breathe. She's been waiting a long time, and she knows you're here. Let me ask you something right now, before we go deeper. Have you ever felt it, that sense you're not alone? That something's watching when the world is still? Maybe it was a creak in the hall, a shadow that moved too fast, a voice you swore called your name. Hold that feeling, keep it close, because tonight we're meeting something that doesn't just watch. It knows, it speaks, and once it starts, it doesn't stop. Have you ever heard a voice you couldn't explain? Something that made your heart race, your skin crawl? Drop it in the comments when we're done. I read everyone, and trust me, your story matters. Maybe it's part of hers. The Bell Witch isn't just a name, she's a force, a shadow, a truth that's outlasted time. She began with the bells, but she didn't end with them. Her story lives in the hills of Tennessee, in the cave where her laughter echoes, in the tales told by those who felt her touch. And tonight, for the next hour, she lives here, with us, with you, so take a breath, steady your hands, and listen. The Bell Witch is ready to speak, and she's got a lot to say. Are you ready? I hope so, because there's no turning back now. Let's step into 1817, into a house that's not what it seems, into a family that's about to learn what fear really means. The Bell Witch is waiting, and she's been waiting for you. Let's begin, and so we begin. Let's step back to 1817, to a place where the world felt new and touched, full of promise. Adams, Tennessee, was barely a name than just a scattering of farms tucked between rolling hills and thick forests, where the Red River wound its way like a quiet vein through the earth. The air was clean, sharp with the scent of pine and freshly turned soil. By day, the sun warmed the fields, and the hum of work filled the town. Axes splitting wood, horses pulling plows, children chasing each other through the grass. By night, the stars burned bright, and the silence was deep, broken only by crickets' howls and the soft prayers of families gathered around their hearths. At the heart of Adams stood the Bell family. Their home was a beacon of sorts, a sturdy house built from oak and ambition, its walls weathered but strong, its chimney trailing smoke into the twilight. John Bell was the man of the house, 47 years old, with a face carved by years of toil. He was tall, broad-shouldered, his hands rough from clearing land, his eyes sharp with the kind of pride that comes from making something out of nothing. He'd come to Tennessee for a better life, and he'd founded a farm that fed his family, a name respected in town, a legacy he planned to pass down. Lucy Bell, his wife, was 40, a woman of quiet strength. Her voice was soft, her smile warm, but there was iron in her spine. She ran the household with grace, stitching clothes, baking bread, teaching her children to read by candlelight. Everyone loved Lucy. Neighbors sought her advice. Children clung to her skirts, and John, though he rarely said it, leaned on her more than he'd admit. Together, they raised 9 children, a lively brood that filled the house with noise and life. There was Jesse, the eldest son, 20, already a farmer like his father, John Jr., 18, restless and bold, and Betsy, the youngest girl, just 12, with wide eyes and a laugh that could light up the darkest day. The Bell house was a world of its own. Mornings began with the clatter of pots, Lucy calling the children to breakfast while John checked the barn. Days were spent in the fields or at chores, milking cows, mending fences, hauling water from the well. Evenings brought them together, gathered around a fire that crackled with warmth, Lucy reading from the Bible, John telling stories of his youth, Betsy giggling at her brother's teasing. It was a good life, hard but honest, the kind you'd fight to keep. The Bells were happy, or as happy as anyone could be in a world where nothing came easy. But happiness, it seems, draws shadows. In the summer of 1817, something found the Bells, something that didn't belong. It started with a knock, just one, sharp and clear, on the front door as the sun sank below the hills. It was late July, the air thick with heat, the sky streaked with red. John was inside, whittling a stick by the hearth, the wood curling under his knife. Lucy sat across from him, mending a shirt, her needle glinting in the firelight. The children were scattered. Betsy in her room, sketching flowers on a scrap of paper. Jessie in the barn, the others already asleep. The knot cut through the evening, too loud, too deliberate to be chance. John paused, his knife still. Visitors were rare after dark, and the nearest neighbor, James Johnston, lived a mile away. He glanced at Lucy, who looked up, her needle frozen mid-stitch. "Did you hear that?" she asked, her voice low. John nodded, set down his work, and grabbed a lantern from the wall. Its flame flickered as he opened the door, casting long shadows across the porch. He called out, his voice steady but firm. "Who's there? Show yourself." Nothing. The yard was empty, the field still, the oak tree by the house standing like a silent guard. The air felt wrong, too heavy, too quiet, like the world was holding its breath. John stepped further, his boots crunching on the dirt, the lantern swinging in his hand. He checked the porch, the windows, the path to the barn. Not a soul, not a sound, not even the wind. He stood there a moment, staring into the dark, his heart beating just a little too fast. Then he turned back, locked the door, and said nothing. Lucy caught his eye as he sat down, her face pale in the firelight. "What was it?" she asked. John shrugged, picking up his knife again. "Branch, maybe, or the house settling." But his hands weren't as steady as before, and Lucy didn't press. They both felt it, a weight, a shift, like something had slipped inside when the door was open. The next night it came again, to knocks this time, harder, on the eastern wall. Where Betsy's room faced the fields, John was in the barn, checking the horses, when he heard them. They weren't soft, not like the night before, but sharp, insistent, like someone demanding to be let in. He dropped his pitchfork and ran, his boots sinking in the mud, his breath catching in the heat. By the time he reached the house, Betsy was at the door, her nightgown tangled, her face white as bone. "Pa," she said, her voice trembling, "it's in my wall." John pushed past her, lantern high, and stormed into her room. The air was cool, sharper than it should be, though the window was shut tight. He pressed his hand to the wall, feeling for cracks, for anything that could explain it. Nothing. The wood was solid, the room empty. Betsy's bed neatly made except for the blanket twisted at the foot. Lucy followed, pulling Betsy close, her arms tight around her daughter. "It's all right," she whispered. "Just the house, just the night." But Betsy shook her head, her eyes fixed on the window. "I saw her, Ma. She was there." John spun around, his lantern casting wild shadows. "Saw who?" he demanded. Betsy's voice was small, barely a breath. "A woman, tall, with black hair. She was standing by the oak tree, looking at me. Her eyes, they weren't right, Pa. They glowed like fire, but cold." John crossed to the window, yanked it open, and leaned out. The oak tree stood alone, its branches still, the fields stretching dark and empty to the horizon. He slammed the window shut, his jaw tight. "No one's out there. Betsy." It was a dream. Go back to bed. But Betsy didn't move. She clung to Lucy, her fingers digging into her mother's arm. "It wasn't a dream," she said. "She hates me, I know she does." Lucy rocked her, humming softly, but her own eyes darted to the window, searching the dark. John stood by the door, his lantern low, his face unreadable. He didn't believe in ghosts, not yet. But something in Betsy's voice, something in the air made him pause. He didn't sleep that night, and neither did Lucy. By the third night, the knocks were everywhere. They came in waves, fast and angry, pounding the front door, the back, the attic, the cellar. They weren't random anymore. They had a rhythm, a purpose, like a fist beating a warning. The children woke screaming, piling into their parents' room, their faces pale, their voices overlapping. "It's outside, it's in the walls, it's everywhere." John grabbed his rifle, his hands steady now. Fueled by anger more than fear, he stormed through the house, checking every room, every corner, every shadow. Nothing, always nothing. Lucy lit a candle, her hands shaking, and led the children in prayer. Her voice was firm, though it cracked on the harder words. The knocks drowned her out, louder, closer, as if mocking her faith. Betsy hid her face, her brothers pulling her close, but even Jesse, the strongest, looked uneasy. John returned, his rifle useless, his eyes burning. "Enough," he said, to no one, to everyone, to whatever was listening. "Leave us be," but it didn't. The knocks grew bolder, wilder, a storm trapped inside the house. They came at all hours now, dawn, noon, midnight, never letting the bells rest. Scratches joined them, clawing at the walls, the floors, the doors. At first, they were faint, like mice skittering in the dark, but soon they were deep, jagged, carving lines no animal could make. John found them one morning, 3 marks on the attic door, red as blood in the sunrise. He ran his fingers over them, his breath catching. They weren't cuts, they were burns. The wood charred but cold. The family tried to hold on. They worked harder, prayed louder, kept their fears locked tight. Adams was a town of faith, and strange talk brought judgment, whispers of sin, of curses, of things no Christian should face. John forbade the children from speaking of it, told them it was a prank, a test, something they'd outlast. Lucy nodded, her smile forced, but she lit candles every night, their flames flickering in a house that felt less theirs with every passing day. Betsy bore the worst. She'd wake screaming, her hair tangled, her skin marked with bruises no one could explain. One night, she ran to her parents, her cheek red from a slap that came from nowhere. "I saw her again," she cried, pointing to the window. "She's closer now, Ma, she's right there." Lucy looked, her heart pounding, but the glass showed only darkness. She held Betsy tight, whispering prayers, but the girl's words echoed in her mind. "She hates me, she wants me gone." John searched the yard again, his lantern cutting through the night. He checked the oak tree, the fields, the barn, even the riverbank a quarter-mile away. Nothing. No footprints, no tracks, no sign of man or beast. But the air was wrong, cold, heavy, like stepping into a grave. He stood by the tree, his rifle heavy in his hands, and for the first time, he felt it, eyes watching, not from the dark, but from inside him, knowing him, judging him. He turned back, faster than he meant to, and locked the door twice. The knocks weren't the only thing now. Footsteps came next, heavy and deliberate, pacing the attic when no one was there. They'd start soft, like boots on dust, then grow louder, shaking the beams, stopping just above Betsy's room. The children swore they heard humming a hymn, familiar but wrong, the notes twisting into something that hurt to hear. Plates rattled in the kitchen, chairs tipped over in empty rooms, and once, a mirror cracked, its glass splitting clean down the middle, though no one touched it. Lucy tried to keep the house alive. She cooked, cleaned, sang to the younger ones. But her hands shook when she poured water, her eyes darting to corners where nothing stood. She'd wake to find her sewing undone, her needles bent, her Bible open to pages she hadn't touched. She told herself it was exhaustion, a trick of the mind, but deep down, she knew better. Something was here, something that didn't want them. John was stubborn, a man of earth and reason. He checked the house daily, walls, roof, foundation, looking for answers he could touch. He questioned the children, his voice sharp, demanding to know if they played a trick. They shook their heads, their eyes wide, and even Jesse, who never lied, swore he'd heard it too. John rode to town, asked the blacksmith, the miller, anyone who might know something. Nothing. No one had answers. But they had questions. Why did the bells look so tired, so pale, so afraid? The town started whispering. Adams was small, and secrets didn't last. At church, women glanced at Lucy, their voices low. At the market, men asked John if his land was troubled, if he'd crossed someone he shouldn't. Some spoke of Kate Batts, a woman who lived by the river, strange and sharp-tongued, who'd argued with John over a deal years back. She'd cursed him, they said, promised he'd pay. Others thought the Bell's farm was wrong, built on old ground, maybe Cherokee mounds. Maybe graves no one remembered, a few old-timers, their eyes distant, spoke of spirits, things older than the town, tied to the hills, the rivers, the bones beneath. The Bells heard the talk but said nothing. They couldn't afford to. They doubled their prayers, their candles burning through the night. Lucy read psalms until her voice gave out. John led hymns that trembled in the air. But the thing didn't care. It was growing, feeding, learning. One morning, Betsy found her sketchbook ruined, her flowers scratched out, replaced with lines, 3 lines, over and over, like claws on paper. She burned it, her hands shaking, but the image stayed with her, burned into her mind. The family barely slept. The knocks came at random now, soft one moment, deafening the next, a rhythm that mocked their every move. The scratches spread on doors, on floors, on the walls of Betsy's room, always 3, always cold. The footsteps never stopped, pacing, waiting, watching. The humming grew louder, a hymn no one knew, filling the house at midnight, twisting their prayers into screams. John tried to hold the line. He was the father, the protector, the man who didn't bend. But his hands shook when he held his rifle. His voice cracked when he spoke of the farm. He'd walk the fields alone, staring at the horizon, as if answers lay beyond it. Lucy watched him, her heart heavy, knowing he was fighting something he couldn't see. Betsy stayed close to her mother, her laughter gone, her eyes searching for a woman no one else believed in. One night, a neighbor, James Johnston, came to the house. He was a big man, loud, a skeptic who laughed at ghost stories. He'd heard the rumors, seen the Bells' faces, and decided to end it. "I'll stay," he said, "and prove it's nothing." John warned him, his voice low, but Johnston waved it off. "I don't scare easy," he said. Settling by the fire with a grin, the Bells went to bed, their prayers louder than ever, but sleep didn't come. The knocks started at midnight, louder than before, pounding the walls like a storm. Johnston sat up, his grin gone, his eyes darting. The air turned cold, so cold his breath fogged, though the fire roared. He called out, his voice sharp, "Who's there? Stop this nonsense." The knocks answered, faster, closer, circling in. Then came the laugh, high, sharp, not human, right by his ear. Johnston froze, his hands gripping the chair, his heart pounding so loud he thought it'd burst. He prayed, his voice shaking, psalms he'd learned as a boy. The laugh grew louder, drowning him out, and the fire dimmed, though no one touched it. A chair slid across the room, slow at first, then fast, stopping inches from his legs. Johnston stood, his face pale, and shouted into the dark. "Leave me be." The answer was a hum, that hymn again, twisting through the air, wrapping around him like a chain. He didn't sleep. By dawn, he was gone, his boots heavy on the porch, his voice hoarse as he told John, "I was wrong, something's here, John." Something alive. He didn't look back, didn't stop, didn't come to church that Sunday. The town heard his story, and the whispers grew whispers of curses, of spirits, of a house that wasn't right. The Bells called it the witch now, not because they knew what it was, not because they saw her, but because no other word held the weight of their fear. It wasn't a ghost, not a prank, not anything they'd read in scripture. It was something else, something that hated, something that waited, something that grew with every sleepless night, and it wasn't done. The knocks, the scratches, the shadows, they were just the beginning. The witch was learning, sharpening, preparing. She was about to do more than tap on walls. She was about to speak, and when she did, the Bells would learn what terror really meant. But before we go there, let me ask you something. Have you ever heard a knock you couldn't explain? A sound in the night, too clear, too close, with no source you could find. Maybe it was a creak, a tap, a thud that made you hold your breath, wondering if you should check or stay still. What did you do? Did you open the door? Look out the window, call out into the dark. Or did you wait, heart racing, praying it wouldn't come again? Drop your story in the comments when we're done. I want to know, and so do our listeners. Because sometimes a knock is just the start. The air in Adams, Tennessee, had changed by the spring of 1818. It wasn't just the warmth of April, the way the hills bloomed with wildflowers or the Red River glittered under the sun. No, something heavier hung over the Bell family's home, something that clung to the walls, seeped into the earth, and pressed against every breath they took. The knocks that began the summer before hadn't stopped, not for a day, not for an hour. They'd grown louder, wilder, a constant pulse in the house, like a heart beating where no heart should be. The scratches had spread, clawing deeper into the wood, leaving marks that burned cold to the touch, and the shadows, oh. The shadows, they moved when no one looked, slipping across windows, pooling in corners, watching, always watching. The Bell family was fraying. John Bell, once a tower of strength, carried a weight in his eyes, his shoulders hunched as if the house itself rested on his back. He still worked the fields, still led his family, but his hands shook when he held a tool, and his voice was sharper, edged with a fear he wouldn't name. Lucy, the heart of the home, fought to keep them whole. She cooked, cleaned, prayed until her knees ached, but her smile was thin now, her eyes darting to doors that shouldn't open. The children were ghosts of themselves. Jesse stayed in the barn, avoiding the house. John Jr. slept with a knife under his pillow, and Betsy, sweet Betsy, barely 13, hadn't laughed in months. She'd wake screaming, her hands clutching her face, saying the woman was back, closer now, standing at her bed, her eyes like fire in the dark. The town knew something was wrong. Adams was small, and secrets bled fast. Neighbors whispered at church, their heads bent low, their eyes flicking to the Bell's pew. They'd seen John's face, pale and drawn, Lucy's hands trembling as she passed the bread. They'd heard the stories, knocks at midnight, scratches no animal could make, Betsy's cries echoing across the fields. Some called it a prank, others a curse, a few dared whisper of spirits, but no one knew the truth. No one except the Bells, and even they weren't sure what they faced. They called it the witch now, not because they understood it, but because fear needed a name. It wasn't just the knocks or the scratches anymore. The footsteps had grown heavier, pacing the attic, circling Betsy's room, stopping just above her bed, as if something stood there, waiting. The humming was constant and twisted and wrong, slipping through the walls at midnight, curling around their prayers like smoke. Plates rattled in the kitchen, doors creaked open in still air, and mirrors. Lucy stopped looking in them, stopped trusting what she might see. The family tried to hold on. They worked through the days, prayed through the nights, kept their fears locked behind tight lips. John forbade talk of it outside the house, told the children it was a test, something they'd outlast. Lucy lit candles, their flames dancing in a house that felt colder every day. But Betsy couldn't hide it. She'd flinch at every sound, her eyes searching for a woman no one else saw. She'd draw flowers to calm herself, only to find them scratched out, her paper torn, 3 lines carved into the table beneath. One night, everything changed. It was April, the air soft with spring, the stars bright over Adams. The Bells were gathered by the fire, exhausted, their Bible open to Psalms, Lucy's voice steady as she read. The knocks had paused, a rare moment of quiet, and for the first time in weeks, they dared to hope. Maybe it's gone, Jesse whispered, his voice low, as if saying it might break the spell. Lucy smiled, her hand on Betsy's, and John nodded, though his eyes stayed on the door. Then it came, not a knock, not a scratch, but a sound that froze their blood, a whisper, faint at first, like wind slipping through a crack, but sharp, alive, coming from nowhere and everywhere at once. It filled the room, curling around the fire, brushing against their skin. Lucy's voice faltered, her Bible trembling in her hands. John stood, his chair scraping the floor, his eyes wide. "Who's there?" he demanded, his voice cutting the silence like a blade. The whisper grew, clear now, cold. Not human, I am a spirit, it said, from everywhere, from heaven, hell, and all between. The fire dimmed, though no one touched it, its light shrinking to a flicker. Lucy clutched Betsy, pulling her close, her breath shallow. The older boys, Jesse and John Jr., froze, their hands gripping their chairs, their eyes searching the shadows. Betsy buried her face in her mother's skirt, whimpering, her small body shaking like a leaf. John stepped forward, his fists clenched, his voice louder now. What do you want? Show yourself. The answer came, slow, deliberate, each word a weight that pressed against their hearts. You, John Bell, you. The voice wasn't just sound, it was alive, jagged, like glass grinding against stone, high and sharp, cutting through the air. It laughed, then a laugh that didn't belong, a sound that crawled under their skin, sharp enough to draw blood. Lucy whispered a prayer, her voice barely audible, but the voice the witch drowned her out. It sang, twisting a hymn they knew, the words bending into something profane, something that burned to hear. Betsy screamed, her hands over her ears, and the voice turned on her, hissing her name. Betsy, Betsy, little Betsy. The girl collapsed, sobbing, her cries echoing in the sudden silence. The fire flared, then steadied, but the air was cold now, so cold their breath fogged, though spring lay warm outside. John grabbed his rifle, his hands shaking, not with fear but with fury. He stormed to the door, flung it open, and shouted into the night, "Leave us be, whatever you are, leave us." The only answer was that laugh again, fainter now, slipping into the trees, but it lingered in the house, in their minds, in the walls themselves. He slammed the door, locked it, and turned to his family, their faces pale, their eyes wide with something worse than fear knowing. From that night, the witch never shut up. She was everywhere, her voice a shadow that followed them, slipping through the cracks, the floors, the air they breathed. In the morning, she mocked Lucy's work, calling her a fool who couldn't keep a house. In the fields, she whispered to John, listening since he'd buried deep moments of anger, moments of shame, things no one could know. At night, she sang to the children, lullabies that turned to screams, waking them in terror, their beds shaking, their blankets yanked away. Betsy got it worst. The witch loved her in a twisted, cruel way, calling her name at all hours, laughing when she cried. One morning, Betsy woke with her hair knotted, tied so tight it hurt to touch, though no one had been near her. Another night, she felt a slap hard, stinging, leaving a red mark on her cheek, though the room was empty. She ran to Lucy, sobbing, seeing the woman was there, standing at her bed, her eyes burning, her hands reaching. Lucy held her, rocking her, but her own hands trembled, her prayers faltering as she glanced at the window, half expecting to see her. The witch wasn't just cruel, she was clever. She listened, she learned, she knew things no one should. One day, Lucy found her sewing basket spilled, her needles bent, her thread tangled in patterns no hand could make. She cleaned it up, saying nothing, but that night, the witch spoke from the kitchen, her voice soft, almost kind. Poor Lucy, always working, always failing. Your family doesn't need you, they need me. Lucy froze, her heart pounding, and dropped her candle, the wax pooling like blood on the floor. John heard her out in the barn, checking the horses. The witch's voice came from there, not loud but clear, naming debts he'd paid years ago, fights he'd forgotten, promises he'd broken. You're weak, John Bell, she said, and I see it all. He swung his lantern, shouting into the dark, but the voice just laughed, circling him, closer, then gone. He didn't tell Lucy, didn't tell anyone, but he checked the locks twice that night, his rifle closer than ever. The children weren't spared. Jesse, the strongest, heard his name called from the fields, a voice so like Lucy's he ran to find her, only to see her in the house, nowhere near. John Jr. woke to his knife missing, found it stabbed into his door, 3 scratches around the hilt. The younger ones, Drury and Joel clung to each other, saying they saw her a woman, tall, in the hallway, her face hidden, her hands long and thin. Betsy drew her once, then burned the paper, saying it made her feel sick, like the woman knew. The house itself seemed alive, doors slammed without wind. Windows rattled in still air, and the fire Lucy swore had moved, its flames bending toward her, though no draft stirred. One night, a chair slid across the room, slow at first, then fast. Stopping inches from Betsy's feet, she screamed, and the witch laughed, her voice everywhere, nowhere, filling the house with a sound that didn't fade. The town couldn't ignore it anymore. The bells had kept quiet, but fear has a way of spilling out. James Johnston, the neighbor who'd faced the witch, told everyone, his voice low, his hands shaking, saying it wasn't human, wasn't right. Others noticed too the Bells' crops wilted faster than they should. Their cows gave sour milk, their dog howled at nothing. At church, the preacher, Thomas Gunn, watched Lucy closely. His sermon's heavier now, full of warnings about evil, about tests no man could pass alone. Word spread beyond Adams, farmers from Clarksville, travelers from Nashville. Even a peddler from Kentucky, they heard the tales and came, drawn by curiosity, by faith, by something darker. They stood outside the Bell house, their lanterns flickering, waiting for a sign. Some laughed, calling it a trick, but they didn't laugh long. One man, a trader named William Porter, stayed the night, boasting he'd scare the ghost away. The knocks came at midnight, louder than thunder, and the air turned so cold his teeth chattered. He prayed, and the witch answered not with words, not yet, but with a laugh that sent him running, his boots slipping in the mud. His pride left behind, the witch loved an audience. She'd wait until the house was full, neighbors, cousins, strangers, then strike. Her knocks a drumbeat, her scratches a warning. One evening, a woman named Sarah Hawkins, a friend of Lucy's, sat with the family, her Bible open, her voice steady as she prayed. The witch didn't like it. The book flew from the shelf, not falling but soaring, landing open at Sarah's feet, its pages torn to 3 lines. Sarah screamed, and the witch laughed, her voice echoing long after the candles went out. Betsy was her favorite target. The witch followed her day and night, her voice a constant shadow. "Betsy, come play," she'd say, soft at first, then sharp, her words twisting into curses when Betsy didn't answer one afternoon. Betsy stood by the well, fetching water, when the bucket jerked from her hands, splashing her with water so cold it burned. She looked up, and there she was, the woman, by the oak tree, her hair black, her eyes glowing, her smile wrong. Betsy ran, her screams bringing Lucy, but the tree was empty, the ground untouched. Lucy tried to protect her, keeping Betsy close, sewing by her side, praying over her bed, but the witch was stronger. One night, Betsy's hair was pulled, hard, yanking her from sleep. She screamed, and Lucy ran in, finding her daughter tangled in her own braid, her scalp red, her eyes wild. "She's here, Ma," Betsy sobbed, pointing to the corner, where nothing stood but shadows. Lucy lit a candle, her hands shaking, and saw them 3 scratches on the wall. Fresh, deep, cold as death, John fought in his own way. He was a man of action, not prayers, and the witch knew it. She taunted him, her voice slipping into his work, his thoughts, his dreams. One day, he found his tools scattered, his hammer buried in the dirt, 3 lines scratched into the handle. "You can't stop me, John," the witch said, her voice so close he swore she was behind him. He spun around, his heart pounding, but the fields were empty, the sun high, the air still. The family tried to understand her. Lucy wondered if it was a lost soul, trapped, needing help. She'd pray for it, her voice soft, asking God to guide it home. The witch laughed, her voice cutting through the prayer, calling Lucy a fool, a weakling, a mother who'd lose everything. John thought of Kate Batts, the woman who'd cursed him years ago, her words sharp over a land deal gone wrong. Could it be her, back for blood? He rode to her house once, his rifle hidden. but found her alive, old, bitter, denying everything. The witch laughed when he returned, saying, "Not her, John. Me?" The children had their own ideas. Jessie spoke of Cherokee tales, spirits tied to the land, angry at new farms. John Jr. thought it was a demon, something from the preacher's warnings, testing their faith. Betsy didn't care what it was, she just wanted it gone. She'd hide her drawings, her toys, anything the witch might touch, but it didn't matter. The witch found her, always, her voice a whisper in her ear, a scream in her dreams. The town grew restless. Some shunned the bells, crossing the road to avoid them, fearing the witch's reach. Others came closer, drawn by the mystery, the fear, the chance to see something no one could explain. A man named Joshua Gardner, a young preacher, visited often, his eyes kind but sharp, watching Betsy too closely. He prayed with the family, his voice strong, but the witch hated him. She'd knock when he spoke, hum when he prayed, and once threw his Bible across the room, its pages open to a verse no one dared read. The witch was growing, not just in power but in presence. She wasn't just a sound anymore, not just a shadow. She was a force, a mind, a will that pressed against the bells, bending them, breaking them. The knocks were louder, the scratches deeper, the footsteps heavier, circling closer each night. The humming filled the house, no longer a hymn but a chant, low and endless, shaking the walls, the floors, their hearts one night. The bells gathered for supper, their plates untouched, their voices low. The witch was quiet, and they almost believed she'd left. Then it came a crash, sudden, deafening, from the kitchen. Lucy ran, her candle high, and found the table turned, its legs up, its cloth torn to 3 strips. The witch laughed, her voice everywhere, saying, "Eat with me, bells, eat with me." Lucy dropped her candle. The flame snuffed out, and Betsy screamed, her voice raw, endless, filling the house with a terror no one could ignore. The witch had spoken, and she wasn't leaving. She'd found her voice, her power, her prey. The bells were hers now, and the town Adams, Tennessee, the world beyond would soon know her too. She was just beginning, and what came next would shake the very ground they stood on. But before we go deeper, let me ask you something. Have you ever heard a voice call your name when you were alone? Not a shout, not a friend, but a whisper, soft, clear, knowing you in a way that made your skin crawl. Maybe it was late, the house quiet, the world asleep, and there it was, your name, from nowhere, from nothing. What did you do? Did you answer? Did you look, or did you pull the covers higher, praying it wouldn't come again? Drop your story in the comments. I read everyone, and trust me, the witch is listening too, because sometimes a voice is more than sound, sometimes it's her. By 1819, the Bell House wasn't a home anymore, it was a battlefield, a prison, a place where every shadow held a threat and every sound was a warning. The air in Adams, Tennessee, had grown thick, not just with the heat of summer or the chill of fall, but with something heavier, something that pressed against the skin, the heart, the soul. The witch had claimed the bells, her voice a constant blade, cutting through their days, their nights, their prayers. The knocks that started 2 years ago were louder now, a drumbeat that shook the walls, joined by crash, screams, laughter that wasn't human. The scratches had carved the house into a map of fear, 3 lines, always 3, on doors, on floors, on the beams above Betsy's bed, cold as death, deep as hate. The family was breaking. John Bell, 50 now, was a shadow of the man he'd been. His face was pale, his eyes sunken, his hands trembling when he thought no one saw. He still worked the fields, still led his family, but his steps were slow, his voice hoarse, as if something was draining him, pulling him apart from the inside. Lucy, 42, fought to hold them together, her prayers a lifeline, her hands steady as she cooked, cleaned, cared for her children. But even she faltered, her smile was gone, her eyes red from sleepless nights, her Bible worn from endless reading, its pages creased, its words no longer enough. The children were ghosts in their own home. Jessie, 22, spent his days in the barn, his nights in town, anywhere but the house that trapped them. John Jr., 20, was angry. His fists clenched, his knife never far, ready to fight a thing he couldn't see. The younger ones, Drury and Joel, clung to Lucy, their voices small, their eyes wide, saying they saw her the woman, tall, with black hair, standing in the hall, the attic, the fields. And Betsy, poor Betsy, 14 now, was the witch's favorite. She'd wake screaming, her hair torn, her skin marked with scratches, bruises, welts no one could explain. She'd stopped drawing, stopped singing, stopped being the girl who lit up the room. She was a shell, her eyes searching for a woman who hated her, who wanted her broken. The town of Adams watched, torn between fear and doubt. The witch's voice had spread, neighbors heard it, visitors felt it, travelers carried it to Clarksville, to Nashville. Beyond, some called the bells cursed, shunning them at church, crossing the road to avoid their eyes. Others came closer, drawn by the mystery, the terror, the chance to face something no one understood. The preacher, Thomas Gunn, spoke of demons now, his sermons sharp, his gaze fixed on Lucy as if she held the answer. James Johnston, the neighbor who'd faced the witch, told his story to anyone who'd listen, his voice low, his hands shaking, saying it wasn't a trick, wasn't a lie, it was alive, and it was winning. The bells couldn't take it anymore. They tried silence, tried prayer, tried ignoring the witch, but she was stronger, louder, hungrier. She spoke day and night, her voice slipping into their work, their dreams, their fears. She mocked Lucy's faith, called her weak, a mother who'd fail her children. She taunted John, naming sins he'd buried, debts, fights, moments of rage no one knew. She tortured Betsy, whispering her name, pulling her hair, slapping her face until her cheeks burned red, though no hand touched her. The house was hers now, doors slammed without wind, windows cracked in still air, candles snuffed out by nothing anyone could see. They had to fight back. John resisted at first, his pride a wall, his reason a shield. He'd checked the house daily, walls, roof, foundation, looking for tricks, for answers he could touch. But the witch laughed at his efforts, her voice circling him, saying, "You can't stop me, John. You never will." Lucy was softer, her faith deeper, but even she saw it prayer wasn't enough, not against this. She begged John to try something, anything, to save their home, their children, their souls. They started with the church. Thomas Gunn, the preacher, came to the house, his Bible thick, his voice loud, his eyes burning with purpose. He stood in the living room, the bells around him, their heads bowed, their hands clasped. He read Psalms, his words a hammer, calling on God to drive out the evil. The witch didn't flinch. She laughed, her voice high, sharp, drowning him out, reciting his own sermons, twisting them into curses, mocking his faith, his fear, his God. Gunn prayed harder, sweat on his brow, his hands shaking as he raised the Bible like a shield. The air grew cold, so cold Lucy's breath fogged, though the fire roared. A chair moved, not fell, not tipped, but slid, slow and deliberate, across the floor, stopping at Gunn's feet. He stumbled, his voice cracking, but he kept going, shouting now, demanding the spirit leave in Christ's name. The witch answered a crash, sudden, deafening, from the attic, shaking the house, the beams, their hearts. A book flew from the shelf, not Lucy's Bible, but John's ledger, landing open, its pages torn to 3 lines. Gunn froze, his eyes wide, his faith trembling. The witch spoke, her voice soft, almost kind. "Go home, preacher, you're no match for me." Gunn left at dawn, his face pale, his Bible clutched to his chest. He didn't speak, didn't look back, didn't return to the Bell house again. The town heard his story, and the whispers grew whispers of demons, of curses, of a family beyond saving. Lucy wept that night, her prayers silent, her hands cold. John stared at the fire, his jaw tight, his mind racing. They tried God, and God hadn't come. What now? They turned to the land, an old man, Jacob Black, lived by the river, a Cherokee who knew the hills, the spirits. The stories no preacher told, John rode to him, his pride swallowed, his rifle left behind. Black listened, his eyes dark, his voice low, saying the land was old, older than atoms, older than men. And some things didn't sleep. He came to the house, his bag heavy with herbs, bones, things the bells didn't ask about. He burned sage, its smoke thick, curling into shapes no one named. He chanted, his words strange, heavy, shaking the air, calling on spirits older than the witch, stronger, he hoped, than her hate. The witch didn't like it. The knocks came fast, a storm in the walls, louder than ever, shaking the windows, the doors, the earth itself. The smoke turned black, not gray, pulling on the floor, crawling toward black like a living thing. His chant faltered, his hands shook, and the witch spoke not a whisper, not a laugh, but a scream, raw, endless, tearing through the house, the hills, their souls. You dare, she said, her voice a blade, a fire, a flood. This is my place, my time, my prey. Black fell, his breath short, his eyes wide with something worse than fear knowing. He grabbed his bag, his herbs spilling, and ran. His voice hoarse as he shouted to John, it's not a spirit, it's more, it's worse. The witch laughed as he fled, her voice following him to the river, to his home, to his dreams. He never spoke of it again, never left his house, never looked at the bells when they passed. The family was alone now, their hope thinning, their strength fading. Lucy lit candles, but they flickered, bending toward her, though no wind stirred. John checked the locks, the windows, the walls, but the witch was inside, always inside, her voice a shadow that never left. Betsy stayed in her room, her door barred, her blankets pulled tight, but the witch found her, always found her. One night, Betsy woke to her bed shaking, not gently but violently, lifting an inch, then two, then crashing down. She screamed, and Lucy ran in, finding her daughter sprawled on the floor, her arms scratched, 3 lines, fresh and red. The witch wasn't just playing, now she was hunting. She targeted Betsy, her voice a constant torment, calling her name, whispering secrets, promises, threats. Betsy, you're mine, she'd say, soft at first, then loud, her words echoing in the dark, in Betsy's mind, in her heart. One evening, Betsy stood by the mirror, brushing her hair, when the glass cracked, not breaking but splitting. 3 lines down the center, she screamed, and the witch laughed, saying, look at you, Betsy, so small, so weak, so mine. Lucy tried to shield her, keeping Betsy close, sewing by her side, praying over her bed, but the witch was stronger. One night, Betsy was pinned not to her bed, not to the floor, but to the wall, her feet dangling, her arms spread, held by nothing anyone could see. She screamed, her voice raw, her eyes wide with terror, and Lucy ran in, pulling at her, praying, crying, begging. The witch laughed, her voice everywhere, saying, she's mine, Lucy, you can't have her. Betsy fell, gasping, her body bruised, her mind scarred, her faith gone. John was next. The witch hated him, more than Betsy, more than anyone. She followed him day and night, her voice a blade in his ear, his heart, his soul. You're dying, John, she'd say, her voice sweet, then savage, promising pain, promising death. He'd wait choking, his throat tight, his tongue heavy, as if something had crawled inside him. His face swelled, his eyes red, his hands weak, though no doctor could name the cause. Lucy nursed him, her hands gentle, her prayers endless. But the witch laughed, saying, he's mine, Lucy, soon, he's mine. The town sent others, neighbors, friends, strangers drawn by the tales. A man named William Porter tried again, his courage fueled by whiskey, his Bible clutched tight. He stayed one night, and the witch threw him not his body, but his bed, lifting it, spinning it, dropping it with a crash that woke the house. He ran, his voice hoarse, his faith broken, swearing he'd never return. A woman, Sarah Hawkins, came with salt, with prayers, with crosses she'd carved herself. The witch burned them. Not with fire, but with cold, the wood turning black, 3 scratches on each one. Sarah left, her hands shaking, her prayers silent, her eyes empty. Even Andrew Jackson, yes, the Andrew Jackson, the general, the man who'd face armies without blinking, came to Adams, drawn by the stories, by the challenge, by something he couldn't name. He rode with his men, their lanterns high, their laughter loud, saying no ghost could scare them. They didn't reach the house. A mile away, their wagon stopped, not broken, not stuck, but held, as if the earth itself refused them. The witch spoke, her voice clear, cold, cutting through the night. Go back, General. You're not welcome here. Jackson's men froze, their horses rearing, their courage gone. He laughed, or tried to, but his voice was thin, his eyes sharp with something new fear. They left at dawn, and Jackson never spoke of it, never returned, never laughed at ghosts again. The bells were desperate now. Lucy heard the witch one night, her voice soft, almost kind, offering a deal. Give me John, she said, and I'll spare the rest. Lucy wept, her hands over her ears, refusing, praying, begging for another way. The witch laughed, her voice turning cold, saying, You'll all pay, Lucy, all of you. John heard it too, in his dreams, in his pain, in his heart. He'd wake gasping, his face swollen, his voice gone, as if the witch was stealing him, piece by piece. Betsy's suitor, Joshua Gardner, the young preacher, came less often now. He'd pray with the family, his eyes on Betsy, his voice strong, but the witch hated him. She'd scream when he spoke, throw his books, whisper threats only he heard. Marry her, and you'll burn, she said, her voice in his ear. His dreams, his soul, Joshua paled, his hands shaking, his faith tested. Betsy saw it, felt it, knew the witch would never let her go. The town was split, some called it a demon, a test from God, a curse no man could lift. Others called it a trick, a lie, a madness in the Bell's minds. They'd stand outside the house, their lanterns low, waiting for a sign, a sound, a scream. They got at knocks at midnight, laughter in the air, Betsy's cries echoing across the fields. Some prayed, some ran, some stayed, drawn by fear, by faith, by something darker. The witch was everywhere now, not just in the house but in the town, the hills, the river. She'd speak to strangers, naming their sins a stolen coin, a hidden affair, a lie told years ago. She'd laugh when they prayed, sing when they slept, scream when they doubted. One night, a farmer, Daniel Allen, stood by the Bell house, his Bible raised, his voice loud. The witch answered not with words, but with force, pushing him back, not touching him but moving him, his feet sliding in the dirt, his prayers lost in her laugh. The bells fought, but they were losing. Lucy's candles burned low, her voice weak, her hope fading. John's strength was gone, his body frail, his mind torn between fight and surrender. Betsy was a shadow, her eyes empty, her hands clutching a cross that didn't help. The children hid Jessie in the fields, John Jr. in the barn, the younger ones in Lucy's arms, their voices small, their fears big. The witch was stronger, hungrier, closer. She didn't just knock, now she broke. She didn't just scratch, she clawed. She didn't just speak, she screamed, her voice a storm, a fire, a blade that cut deeper every day. You're mine, John, she'd say, her voice in his ear, his heart, his soul. I'll take you slow, and they'll watch. Lucy heard it, Betsy heard it, the town heard it, and no one could stop it. The fight wasn't over, but it was ending. The bells had tried everything, God, spirits, courage, fear, and the witch had laughed at it all. She was winning, and she knew it. The house was hers, the family hers, the town hers, and soon she'd take what she came for. But before we go further, let me ask you something. Have you ever felt a force you couldn't fight? Not a person, not a thing, but something that pressed against you, held you, knew you, when you were alone in the dark. Maybe it was a weight on your chest, a chill in your bones. A whisper that wasn't there but was saying things you'd never tell. What did you do? Did you fight? Did you run? Or did you wait, praying it would pass? Drop your story in the comments. I read everyone, and so does she. Because sometimes a fight isn't yours to win. Sometimes it's hers. The year was 1820, and the Bell House stood like a wound in Adams, Tennessee, its walls scarred, its air heavy with a darkness no light could touch. The witch had won, not fully, not yet, but her grip was iron. Her voice a chain that bound the family, the town, the very earth beneath. The knocks that began 3 years ago were a storm now, pounding day and night, shaking the house, the hills, the hearts of anyone who dared come near. The scratches had carved the walls into a testament of hate. 3 lines, always 3, deep and cold, marking doors, floors, beams. As if the house itself bled, the laughter, the screams, the whispers, they were endless, a tide that drowned every hope, every prayer, every breath. The Bell family was broken. John Bell, 50 years old, was no longer a man but a shadow, his body frail, his face swollen, his eyes empty, as if the witch had drained him, piece by piece, until only a husk remained. He'd wait choking, his throat tight, his tongue heavy, his hands too weak to hold a cup. He'd walk the fields alone, his step slow, his voice gone, muttering to something no one saw. Lucy, 42, was a ghost of herself, her hands trembling, her eyes red, her prayers a whisper that barely reached the air. She fought for her children, for her home, but her strength was fading, her faith cracking under the weight of a force no God seemed to hear. The children were scattered, their lives torn. Jesse, 22, lived in the barn, his eyes distant, his hands rough from work he used to escape. John Jr., 20, was angry, his knife always close, his voice sharp, cursing a thing he couldn't fight. Drury and Joel, the youngest boys, hid in Lucy's skirts, their voices small, their dreams filled with a woman whose face they couldn't see. And Betsy, 15 now, was the witch's prize. She'd wake screaming, her hair ripped, her skin scratched, her heart heavy with a fear she couldn't name. She'd stopped speaking much, stopped looking at mirrors, stopped believing she'd ever be free. The town of Adams was a shadow too. The witch's voice had reached every corner church, market, mill, her laughter echoing in the hills, her whispers slipping into dreams. Some shunned the bells, crossing the road, avoiding their eyes. Fearing the curse would spread, others watched, waited, drawn by a terror they couldn't resist. The preacher, Thomas Gunn, had stopped coming, his sermons silent on spirits, his faith shaken by a night he wouldn't name. James Johnston, the neighbor who'd faced her, spoke less now, his voice low, his hands shaking when he passed the Bell House. The stories grew, knocks at midnight, scratches in the dark, a voice that knew too much, wanted too much, took too much. The witch was relentless. She didn't just haunt, she hunted, her voice a blade, her will of fire that burned through the Bells' lives. She mocked Lucy, calling her useless, a mother who'd lose her children, her home, her God. She taunted Betsy, whispering her name, pulling her hair, pinning her to walls with a force no one saw. But John was her true target, her obsession, her end. She followed him day and night, her voice in his ear, his mind, his soul. You're mine, John Bell, she'd say, her words sweet one moment, savage the next. I'll take you slow, and they'll watch. John was dying, and everyone knew it. His face swelled, his eyes red, his throat so tight he could barely speak. He'd choke in his sleep, wake gasping, his hands clawing the air, as if something was inside him, squeezing, pulling, breaking. Lucy nursed in, her hands gentle, her prayers endless, but her eyes were wet, her voice cracked, her hope gone. She'd sit by his bed, a candle burning low, watching him fade, knowing the witch was there, always there, laughing in the shadows, waiting for her moment. The house was alive with her hate. Doors slammed without wind, windows shattered in still air, candles flared then died. their wax pooling like blood. The knocks were constant, a heartbeat in the walls, joined by crashed chairs falling, tables turning, books flying from shelves, always landing open, always torn to 3 lines. The scratches spread, not just on wood but on stone, on metal, on the earth outside, as if the witch was claiming more than the house, more than the bells, more than Adams itself. Betsy bore the worst, as always. The witch loved her pain, her fear, her fragility. She'd wake to her bed shaking, not gently but violently, lifting, twisting, dropping with a crash that woke the house. She'd scream, and Lucy would run, finding her daughter sprawled, her arms scratched, her hair torn, her eyes wide with a terror no child should know. "Betsy, my Betsy," the witch would say, her voice soft and sharp, a knife in the dark. "You'll never leave me." One night, Betsy was lifted, not pinned, not held, but raised, her body floating an inch. Then 2, then higher, her screams raw, endless, filling the house, the hills, the sky. Lucy tried to save her, pulling her down, holding her, praying, crying, begging. The witch laughed, her voice everywhere, saying, "She's mine. Lucy, you're too weak, too small, too late." Betsy fell, gasping, her body bruised, her mind scarred, across her last hope snapped into its pieces cold. Marked with 3 lines, Lucy held her, rocking her, whispering psalms, but the words felt empty, the air heavy, the witch's laugh louder than any prayer. The children hid, but there was no hiding. Jesse heard his name called from the fields, a voice so like John's he ran to find him, only to see his father in bed, too weak to speak. John Jr. woke to his knife gone, found it buried in the wall. 3 scratches around it, the blade bent, useless. Drury and Joel saw her, the woman, tall, in the attic, the hall, the yard, her eyes glowing, her hands reaching, her smile wrong. They'd scream, and Lucy would come, but the rooms were empty, the air cold, the witch's laugh lingering like smoke. The town tried to help, or tried to watch. Neighbors brought food, prayers, crosses. But the witch took them, spilled the food, burned the crosses, silenced the prayers with her voice, her hate, her power. A man, Daniel Allen, stood by the house, his Bible raised, his voice loud, calling on God to end it. The witch answered not with words, but with force, pushing him, not touching him but moving him, his feet sliding in the dirt, his Bible falling. Its pages torn to 3 lines, he ran, and the town whispered of demons, of curses, of a family lost to something no one could name. John's end came in December, the winter of 1820. Cold and sharp, the hills white, the air still. He'd been bedridden for weeks, his body failing, his voice gone, his eyes fixed on something no one saw. Lucy stayed by him, her hands on his, her prayers a whisper, her tears falling like rain. Betsy sat in the corner, her eyes down, her heart heavy, blaming herself, though she didn't know why. The children came and went, their voices low, their hands cold, their hope buried under 3 years of fear. On December 20th, John Bell stopped breathing. It wasn't slow, wasn't gentle, wasn't natural. He lay still, his face gray, his eyes open, staring at a shadow no one else could see. A vial sat by his bed, small, black, oily, wrong, not there the night before, not his, not Lucy's, not anyone's. Lucy saw it, her hands shaking, her voice gone, and Betsy screamed, her cry raw, endless, shaking the house, the hills, the sky. The witch spoke, her voice not a whisper, not a laugh, but a shout, clear, cold, final. "I did it. I killed him. I won." The family froze, their breath caught, their hearts stopped. The air was cold, so cold it burned, the fire dim, the walls silent, the witch's voice everywhere, nowhere, forever. Lucy reached for the vial, her hands trembling, her eyes wet, but John Jr. grabbed it, his voice sharp, his hands steady. "Burn it," he said, and they did, throwing it into the fire, watching it blaze. Not red but green, unnatural, wrong, the smoke curling into shapes, 3 lines, always 3, rising into the night, screaming, laughing, fading. The funeral was quiet, too quiet. The town afraid to come, afraid to look, afraid to breathe. They buried John in the hills, his grave small and marked, the earth cold, the air heavy with something no one named. Lucy stood by it, her hands clasped, her voice gone, her eyes empty. Betsy stayed behind, her door locked, her cross broken, her heart blaming her, though she'd done nothing, been nothing, but a child in a house that wasn't hers. The witch didn't leave, not right away. She stayed, her voice softer now, her knocks fainter, her scratches lighter, as if savoring her win. She'd sing to Betsy, lullabies that turned to screams, promising she'd watch her, always watch her. She'd whisper to Lucy, calling her weak, alone, abandoned by God, by John, by hope. She'd laugh in the attic, the cellar, the fields, her voice slipping into dreams, into fears, into the cracks of a family that couldn't heal. Betsy's suitor, Joshua Gardner, came one last time, his eyes kind, his voice soft, asking her to marry him, to leave, to live. The witch answered not Betsy, not Lucy, but her voice sharp, cold, final. She's mine, preacher, touch her, and you'll burn. Joshua paled, his hands shaking, his faith gone. Betsy saw it, felt it, knew it, and sent him away, her eyes wet, her heart heavy, her life hers no more. She'd never marry, never love, never escape the shadow that claimed her. By 1821, the witch spoke less, her knocks faded, her laughter dimmed. One night, she gathered the family not by force, but by will, her voice soft, almost kind, in the living room, the fire low, the air still. I'm leaving, she said, but I'll be back. Bells, 7 years, count them, and I'll see you again. Lucy froze, her Bible open, her hands cold. Betsy wept, her eyes down, her cross gone. Jesse and John Jr. stood silent, their fists clenched, their hope buried with their father. The witch laughed one last time, high, sharp, endless, fading into the walls, the hills, the dark. The house was quiet, too quiet, the air heavy, the shadows long. The bells tried to live, tried to heal, tried to forget. Lucy grew silent, her prayers small, her hands slow, her heart somewhere else. Betsy stayed close, her eyes empty, her voice gone, her life a shadow of what it might have been. Jesse left. Then John Jr., then the others, scattering to towns, to farms, to lives where the witch might not follow. The house stood empty, its walls scarred, its air cold, its story spreading to Clarksville, to Nashville, to places no bell would ever see. 7 years passed, and 1828 came, cold and sharp, the hills quiet, the town small. The witch kept her word, not loud, not strong, but their knocks in the night, faint, soft, on doors, on walls, on graves. Whispers in the dark, not screams, not laughter, but words, small, cold. Knowing Lucy heard them, alone now, her children gone, her faith then. Betsy heard them miles away, her heart racing, her hands shaking, her dreams filled with a woman she'd never forget. Adams never forgot. The town grew quiet, smaller, its people careful, their stories sharp. They spoke of the bells, of John, of Betsy, of a witch who came, who saw, who won. The house was gone, burned or fallen, no one knew, but its shadow lingered, its scars deep, its voice, her voice still there, in the hills, the river, the air. The witch had taken what she wanted, but she wasn't done. She'd promised to return, and promises like hers don't break. The bells were gone, but their story wasn't, and neither was she. But before we move on, let me ask you something. Have you ever felt death too close? Not yours, not now, but something, a shadow, a chill, a moment when the air was wrong, and you knew, just knew, something was there, watching, waiting, claiming. Maybe it was a dream, a sound, a name whispered in the dark, too real to ignore. What did you do? Did you look? Did you run? Or did you pray, hoping it would pass? Drop your story in the comments. I read everyone, and she's listening, always listening. Because sometimes death isn't an end, sometimes it's her. The Bell Witch took John Bell, broke his family, and left a scar on Adams, Tennessee, that time could never heal. By 1821, she'd faded, not gone, not dead, but quiet, her knock softer, her voice a whisper, her laughter a memory that lingered in the hills, the river, the dreams of those who'd heard her. The Bell House stood empty, its walls crumbling, its air cold, its story spreading like wildfire, spreading to Clarksville, to Nashville, to places no Bell would ever see. Lucy lived on, silent, her children scattered, her heart heavy with a loss no one could name. Betsy fled, her life a shadow, her eyes searching for a woman she'd never forget. The town of Adams grew small, its people careful, their voices low, their stories sharp, passing the tale of the witch from father to son, from mother to daughter, from fear to fear. But the witch wasn't done, she'd promised to return. And promises like hers don't break. She'd claimed a man, a family, a town, but her hunger was bigger, deeper, older, reaching past the Bells, past Adams, past time itself. Her story didn't end with a grave or a house or a name. It grew, it lived, it waited, and it found a new home, a place where her voice still echoes, her shadow still moves, her power still breathes. That place is the Bell Witch Cave, and this is where her legacy begins. The cave sits near the old Bell farm, a jagged wound in the earth, its mouth dark, its walls cold, even when the Tennessee sun burns high. It's not just stone and shadow, it's something else, something wrong, something that pulls you in, holds you, knows you. No one knows when it got her name, when the whispers tied it to her, but by 1828, the year she promised to return, the cave was hers. Farmers spoke of sounds, knocks, faint at first, then loud, coming from the dark, from nowhere. From her, children swore they heard singing hymns, like the witch used to sing, but twisted, wrong, curling through the trees, the hills, the air. In 1828, the knocks came back, not to the Bells, not to their house, but to Adams, to the cave, to anyone who listened. A man, Elijah Turner, stood by the river, his lantern low, his Bible tight, saying he heard her voice, not loud, not clear, but there, calling his name, laughing, knowing. He ran, his boots slipping, his heart racing, his story spreading. A woman, Mary Holt, walked the hills, her eyes sharp, her hands steady, until she felt its eyes, not human, watching from the cave, burning through her, seeing her sins, her fears, her soul. She didn't walk those hills again, didn't speak of it, didn't sleep without a candle burning. The cave became a legend, a dare, a warning. By 1880, it was more than a story, it was a place, a name, a fear. A farmer, Samuel Reed, went in, his courage high, his lantern bright, saying he'd prove it was nothing. He came out shaking, his hair white, his voice gone, swearing he heard her not just singing, but speaking, naming his father, his grandfather. Things no one knew, things no one could know. He sold his land, left Adams, left Tennessee, but his story stayed, grew, fed her. The years passed, and the cave waited. In 1935, a boy, Thomas Carter, ran to it, a bet with friends, his laughter loud, his heart light. He went in, his voice echoing, his steps sure, until the dark grew heavy, the air cold, the walls alive. He came out mute, his eyes fixed on something no one saw, his hands trembling, his life changed. His mother burned his clothes, prayed over him, moved him to Kentucky, but the cave kept his story, kept her, kept everything. By the 1990s, the Bell Witch Cave was infamous, a magnet for the curious, the brave, the reckless. Ghost hunters came, their tapes rolling, their meters flashing. Their prayers have spoken, have feared. They caught things, sounds, not knocks, not scratches, but voices, clear, sharp, hers. One tape from 1994 held a laugh high, jagged, not human. filling the dark, the static, the silence. Another, from 1998, caught a word Betsy, soft, cold, endless, as if she was still there, still hers, still waiting. The hunters left, their tapes heavy, their courage gone, their stories spreading to books, to shows, to a world that wanted her, feared her, needed her. But the cave isn't just old tales, dusty stories, faded fears. She's here now, in our time, in our world, in the air we breathe. In 2003, a camper, Sarah Mitchell, pitched her tent near the cave, her fire bright, her friends loud, her heart easy. She woke at midnight, not to wind, not to wolves, but to scratches 3 lines, sharp, deep, on her tent, moving, clawing, alive. She screamed, her friends ran, their lanterns high, but the scratches didn't stop, didn't fade, didn't explain. They packed, they fled, but Sarah's photos are blurry, shaking photos showed a shadow, tall, thin, wrong, standing where no light could reach. In 2015, a paranormal team, the Tennessee Ghost Seekers, went in, their cameras rolling, their EVPs ready, their faith in. They stayed an hour, not a night, not a day, but an hour, and it was enough. They caught her not on film, not on tape, but in the air, in their bones, in their dreams. A laugh, high, sharp, hers, filled the cave, the mix, the dark. Saying names Mark, Jenny, Paul, names they knew, names they hid, names she shouldn't know. They ran, their gear left behind, their tapes lost, their story viral, shared, believed, feared. It didn't stop. In 2023, a hiker, Daniel Lee, walked the hills, his phone high, his eyes sharp, filming for TikTok, for likes, for laughs. He heard it, not wind, not birds, but a whisper, soft, clear, close, Betsy. He froze, his camera shaking, his heart racing, his voice gone. The clip, 30 seconds, grainy, raw, shows nothing but the sound. Her sound is there, calling, knowing, waiting. It hit 1 million views, not for fame, not for fun, but for fear, for truth, for her. In 2024, a camper, Emily Ward, stayed too close, her tent too near, her sleep too deep. She woke to lights, not stars, not fire, but lights, moving, dancing, circling the cave, 3 of them, always 3, glowing, cold, wrong. She ran, her boots heavy, her breath short, her story small, untold until she posted it, shredded, our paranormal, a thread that grew, shared, lived. She swore she saw her, not lights, not shadows, but her, tall, thin, faceless, standing by the cave, watching, smiling, knowing the cave is hers, but it's more than stone, more than dark, more than fear. It's a doorway, a mirror, a truth no one wants to see. Compasses fail there, spinning, lost, broken. Phones die, their screens black, their signals gone. The air is heavy, not with damp, not with cold, but with her, pressing, holding, seeing. Locals don't go at night, don't speak her name. Don't look too long, the town banned tour in 2024, not for safety, not for law, but for fear, for truth, for her. She's still here, in 2025, in our world, in our time. The cave collapses sometimes. Its walls falling, its mouth closing, but the sounds don't stop, the voices don't fade, the fear doesn't end. A ranger, unnamed, reported knocks last month, not loud, not clear, but there. Coming from the dark, from her, a tourist lost, heard singing not hymns, not songs, but her, twisting words, twisting time, twisting souls. The stories grow, not smaller, not weaker, but bigger, stronger, alive, fed by every whisper, every shiver, every soul that listens. And now, let's ask the question no one wants to answer. What is she? A ghost, a spirit, a curse born of pain, cave bats, seeking blood, or something older, tied to the earth, the hills, the bones beneath. The Bells thought they knew, thought they fought, thought they lost, but what if they were wrong? What if the witch isn't one thing, one soul, one name? What if she's more than a woman, more than a spirit, more than a story? What if she's fear itself, not born, not made, but always there, growing with every tale, every scream, every heart that races in the dark? Think about it. Every knock you've heard, every shadow you've seen, every whisper you've ignored, was it her, or was it you? Feeding her, calling her, making her, the bells gave her a name, a place, a time. But what if she's bigger, older, endless? What if she's in the cave, in the hills, in the air, in you right now? Listening, watching, waiting, she'd promised to return, not once, not twice, but forever, every century, every story, every fear. And 2025 to 2025 is here, my friends, and she's awake. The Bell Witch isn't a tale to forget when the lights come on. She's a truth, a warning, a shadow that grows with every word we speak. She's in the cave, yes, but she's more. She's in the stories, the dreams, the moments when you're alone, and the world is too quiet, too still, too wrong. She's not one spirit, not one ghost, not one curse. She's all of them, none of them. Everything you fear when the dark closes in. So listen, my friends, and listen well. The next time you're alone, the next time the house is quiet, the next time you hear a knock, a tap, a voice calling your name, don't answer, don't look, don't breathe. Because she's there, not in Tennessee, not in a cave, but here, with you, in you, knowing you. And she's not done, not now, not ever. But before we leave her, let me ask you something. Have you ever been to a haunted place? A house, a cave, a hill where the air was wrong, the shadows too long, the silence too loud. Maybe you felt it, a chill, a weight, a whisper that wasn't there but was, saying things you'd never tell. What did you do? Did you stay? Did you run? Or did you listen, hoping it was nothing? Knowing it was her, drop your story in the comments. I read every one, and she's watching, always watching. Because sometimes the place isn't just a place, sometimes it's her, and so. We reach the end not of the Bell Witch, not of her shadow, not of her voice, but of our journey through her story, a tale that's haunted America for over 200 years. Here, at the close of our hour with Midnight Mysteries, let's step back, take a breath, and look at what we've uncovered. A nightmare born in 1817, a force that tore a family apart, a truth that lingers in the hills of Tennessee, in the dark of a cave, in the corners of our minds. The Bell Witch isn't just a ghost, not just a curse, not just a name. She's something more, something alive, something that's never truly gone. Let's walk it back one last time. It began with a knock, small, sharp, innocent, on a summer night in Adams, Tennessee. The Bell family, John, Lucy, Betsy, their children, thought it was nothing, thought it was the wind, the house, the world they'd built. But it wasn't. It grew, it changed, it spoke. A whisper at first, then a laugh, then a scream. A voice that wasn't human, wasn't animal, wasn't anything they knew. It called their names, knew their secrets, hated their hope. The knocks became a storm, the scratches a map of fear, the shadows a warning no one could ignore. The witch didn't just haunt, she hunted. She followed Betsy, sweet Betsy, a girl too young for such pain, pulling her hair, scratching her skin, whispering her name until her laughter died. She taunted Lucy, strong Lucy, mocking her faith, her love, her fight to keep her family whole. She broke John, proud John, naming his sins, stealing his strength, promising his end. The house wasn't theirs anymore, it was hers, its walls alive, its air cold, its silence a lie. Doors slammed, mirrors cracked, candles burned wrong. And the witch laughed, always laughed, her voice a blade that cut deeper every day. They fought, they prayed with preachers, chanted with wise men, stood with neighbors, with strangers, with a general who thought he knew no fear. But the witch was stronger, older, hungrier. She threw their prayers back, burned their crosses, broke their hope. She spoke to crowds, named their sins, laughed at their God. She pinned Betsy to walls, choked John in his sleep, whispered to Lucy that she'd lose it all. And in 1820, she took John Bell, his life snuffed out. A vial by his bed, her voice shouting, "I did it, I killed him, I won." The bells never recovered, Lucy faded, her heart heavy, her prayers small. Betsy fled, her life a shadow, her eyes searching for a woman who'd never leave. The children scattered, their home gone, their story spreading to towns, to states, to a world that wanted to know, needed to know, feared to know. The witch left, or seemed to, her knocks fading, her voice dim, her promise clear, "I'll be back." Bells, 7 years, count them, and I'll see you again. She kept her word in 1828. The knocks returned, softer, colder, not to the bells but to Adams, to the hills, to a cave that took her name. The Bell Witch Cave, dark, deep, wrong, a place where compasses fail, where phones die, where the ear presses too close. It's hers, always hers, a doorway to something no one names. Farmers heard her, children saw her, hunters caught her on tapes, in dreams, in fears that never faded. By 1880, she was a legend. By 1935, a dare. By 1990, a truth. And now, in 2025, she's more than a story, more than a ghost, more than a fear. She's here, my friends, in our time, in our world. Hikers hear her knocks in the dark, whispers in the cave, names called when no one's there. Campers see her lights that move, shadows that smile, scratches that don't explain. Ghost hunters chase her, their tapes heavy with a laugh, a word, a scream that's hers, always hers. Last month, a ranger heard it, not wind, not stone, but her, singing, knowing, waiting. Last week, a tourist felt it, not cold, not dark, but eyes watching, seeing, claiming. The Bell Witch Cave isn't empty, isn't quiet, isn't past, it's now, it's here, it's her. But what is she, really? We've asked it before, and we'll ask it again, because the answer isn't simple, isn't safe, isn't done. A spirit seeking blood, a curse born of hate. A demon older than the hills, tied to the earth, the bones, the dark. Or something worse, fear itself, not one soul, not one name, but all of them, growing with every story, every shiver, every heart that races in the night. The bells gave her a face, a voice, a time. But what if she's bigger, endless, eternal? What if she's not in the cave, not in Tennessee, but in us, in you right now, listening, watching, waiting? This is why we tell her story. Why Midnight Mysteries brings you into the dark, where the truth is sharp, the shadows deep, the questions heavy. The Bell Witch isn't just history, she's a warning, a mirror, a truth that doesn't fade when the lights come on. She's in every knock you've ignored, every shadow you've seen, every whisper you've felt when the house is too quiet, too still, too wrong. She's not gone, my friends, she's not asleep. She's awake, and she's here, with us, with you, forever. So what do we do with a story like this? We share it, we feel it, we live it. That's where you come in, our Midnight Mysteries family. You've walked with us through 60 minutes of terror, through a house that wasn't a home, a family that wasn't whole, a witch that wasn't human. Now it's your turn, your voice, your story, your fear. Tell us what you've felt, what you've heard, what you've seen. Have you walked a haunted hill, stood in a silent cave, heard a voice when no one was there? Drop it in the comments, I read every single one. And trust me, they matter, they live, they feed the dark. And don't stop there. If this story shook you, if it stayed with you, if it made you check your doors, your windows, your shadows, share it. Send this video to a friend, a skeptic, a believer, someone who needs to know. Let them hear her, let them feel her, let them wonder. Hit that share button, spread the word, make the witch's story grow, because stories like hers don't die, they spread, they haunt, they win. One more thing, join us. If you're not part of Midnight Mysteries yet, hit that subscribe button, ring the bell, step into our world. We're not just a channel, we're a community, a place where the dark is real. The stories are true, and the mysteries never end. Every week, we bring you tales like this, tales that cling to your bones, that make you question the silence, that remind you you're never alone. Subscribe now, become one of us, and let's face the shadows together. Before we go, let's leave you with one last question, one last shiver, one last truth. What's your scariest moment? Not a story, not a tale, but yours, the moment when the world was wrong, when the dark was too close, when you felt something, someone, something, watching, knowing, waiting. Was it a knock at midnight? A whisper in your ear, a shadow that moved when it shouldn't? What did you do? Did you look? Did you run? Or did you listen? Feeling her, knowing her, fearing her? Drop it below. Share it with us. Share it with her, because she's listening, always listening, and she loves a good story. Thank you for joining us, for braving the dark, for walking where most won't dare. The Bell Witch isn't done, not with the bells, not with Adams, not with you. So check your doors, keep a light burning, and listen to the silence, because it's never as silent as you think. This is Midnight Mysteries, where the night is deep, the truth is sharp, and the shadows are never alone. Until next time, stay curious, stay brave, and whatever you do, don't answer the knock.